The Sentinel is known to be reliable, fearless, disciplined, consistent, courageous, motivated, and skillful.
So do what you feel passionate about. Take chances.
All these qualities start from the mind. Your mind can be your worst enemy or your most powerful weapon.
The world becomes your library to help you to become better at your craft.
Is this the dagger?
Learn how to achieve greatness and tap into the Sentinel mindset.
This episode is brought to you by The Arena. The Arena focuses on helping law enforcement and security professionals achieve their ultimate work experience, curriculum, and fitness goals. Visit thearenatoronto.com.
All right, well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to this amazing, beautiful day. I have a very special guest today. This guest is someone that I would say, had a built relationship over the last year or two, okay? And a lot of it has been about what our organization is able to do to help, a lot of individuals that are looking for careers in law enforcement go through the schooling process. And I'm only talking about today about Yvonne Armstrong, who is a professor at Durham College in the Police Foundations program. And Yvonne also has an extensive background in the protection world, which we're going to get into. But for all those listening, the focal point today will be for people that are looking to get into the world of policing or in law enforcement and how to navigate themselves as a student. So Yvonne, welcome for coming on the show today.
Oh, thank you so much for asking me.
Amazing. How are you doing today? Is everything good?
I'm good, yeah.
Good. You excited?
Very excited.
Okay, good. So Yvonne, obviously, and we'll just dive right into this. We will get into your origin stories as a superhero. But before we do that, when we look at a lot of people that, especially in this day and age, and I don't want to put like this, how old is Constantine or how old is Yvonne, because they're talking like, what is the generation happening of today? But when we look at today, we're looking at a new generation that is trying to get into a career. And of course, where a lot of our focus is law enforcement and security, I mean, we can just use the wide umbrella of people are looking to get in and be the next doctor, the next dentist, the next police officer, the next whatever. And I find that a lot of times, and again, maybe this is where the ageism is coming into the mix, where a lot of the mindset on how to navigate yourself in post-secondary is not maybe looked at as serious as it should be, because what you're going to do at this time frame, you've gone past high school right now, but what you're going to do at this time frame is going to start to lay out your opportunities and the foundation for your future. So this is kind of where we want to kind of tackle on, because you see this all the time. But before we get into that, what I wanted to do is ask you, why did you enter into the world of protection? Like what motivated you at that age to say, I want to do this?
Sure. Okay, so right off the bat, let's just put this out there. I'm only 29. I don't know how old you are. So just for the record.
Okay.
So I had a close family friend who was a very senior officer in with the Toronto Police. And I was a 21-year-old, a second-year nursing student at Ryerson. I wasn't loving my program. He knew that I was bilingual. And he said, what about policing? And I never really thought about policing. But, nursing, policing, you're still serving the community, taking care of people. So I threw my application in, and 4 short months later, I was applied. So, I was hired.
Okay.
At 21.
Wow. Okay. And for you coming in at 21, I'm pretty sure like any 21-year-old, by the way, we talk about 21-year-olds of today. This is more of like a cadet story now that would be going in. You came in right into as a constable.
I did, yes. So young, naive, very green girl from Scarborough.
Yes.
I did my time at OPC, went through the training with Toronto Police, and I got stationed in Regent Park.
Okay.
So eye-opening, amazing learning curve. To this day, I remember my first night as clear as day.
Okay.
Just the opportunity that I had working in that environment exposed me to so much more of, what life was all about, marginalized communities. We didn't acknowledge them back then like we do now, but great opportunity for sure.
Okay. And out of curiosity, because I'm going to just jump right to this. I mean, you were there for 13 years.
Yep. Just
Okay.
a little over 13 years. Yep.
Now, when you look at policing back then, okay, because you're only 29, when you look at policing back then, right, and you look at policing right now, for example, would you say it's more of a challenging time frame for someone entering into policing, meaning as in you need to have a lot of things going for you to help you succeed?
So compared to back then to today, I would say yes, it's a very competitive market. Though, as you know, and you've had on previous shows, the numbers are down with recruiting,
Yes.
but it's still very competitive. So you need to set yourself up and your resume up and get your tool belt of tools um, and skills up there so that you stand out to put your best self forward.
Hmm. Okay. Were there things that you were doing in your post-secondary years before you got on that would help you kind of win at what you were doing? Because at the end of the day, like a lot of times when you just come out of school, the one thing that a recruiter will tell you is accumulating life experience, for example, right? But there's a lot of other things that you can do in like discipline practices while you're in school to help you win. When you were in that time frame, do you recall things that made you who you were at that time to help you? When I know as an overload of things, you're just jumping into the job. And by the way, for those listening, Regent Park would be considered quite a bit of a rough neighborhood where things can be very colorful and need to be handled with a lot of poise and also handled with a lot of experience, right? So to be thrown into something like that, I mean, sometimes they say there's no better way to learn just to be thrown in, right?
Yep.
But what are things that you can take from there that you use as your foundation to win?
I think one of the biggest things for me in situation back then, because I was so young and so naive,
Yeah.
um, eyes open, mouth shut,
Mhm.
right? Keep your eyes and ears open. Listen to what other people were telling you. But in terms of what I did, I was always a team player with sports competitively. I competed in figure skating at university. Um, so that team atmosphere, because policing, law enforcement is a team environment. You're not an island unto yourself. So
Mhm.
you're always having to work with other people, um, learning to, be empathetic to other people's opinion. Um, and in terms of what else I did, I always worked. I mean, I started working at 13 at McDonald's.
Yeah.
Uh,
I
so
have a 13-year-old story as well.
so
Yeah. Yeah.
I did things not with the intent to be an officer because I always wanted to get into medicine. So I kind of did kind of a total 180 switch from,
Okay.
medical to policing, but it's still serving my community in a
Right.
sense.
Okay, it's good. So now that you're a professor
Yep.
at a Durham College, and the specialty is the Police Foundations program, you see a lot of students come in, a lot, right? And I'm pretty sure that you can see, like any competitive market, students that are basically like have the X factor or slash have this super drive or like are a very competitive spirit to be the best, right? When you're looking at your classrooms as a whole over the years, what would you say is one of the things that plagues a student or a new student coming in to win, to be successful? Like, how should, from your experiences, when you look at this, how should someone set themselves up once they get into that post-secondary world?
Sure. Okay. So I'm just going to back up a little bit. So I do teach in the Police Foundations program, but I coordinate the Advanced Law program,
Okay.
which is a graduate certificate. So my students in my program have either a degree or a diploma already,
Okay.
and they take the program for the experiential learning piece. So they get to experience placement in both semesters. We have a lot of certifications embedded within our courses to try to one up them, like level up their resume and their credentials. I also teach in the Protection Security Investigations program, which is for students who don't necessarily want policing, but want to do something under the law enforcement umbrella. So be it private security, be it CBSA,
Hmm.
bylaw. So your top students don't need the help, right?
Okay.
They're going to get there
Right.
because they're the overachievers. For me, I try to focus on your middle students, right? Who aren't your 99% average kid.
Yes.
They try hard, they do well. They're the ones that need that extra little push.
Yes. But
So
let me ask you this: how many of those students, when they come into these programs, truly have a desire to get into policing? The reason why I ask this question is because I find that from the other side of interviewing people, when we ask them, well, you went to school for this, what do you want to do? At that moment, when they've completed school, they're still lost and they're
yes,
not sure what they want to do. And sometimes that could be the issue. Is like we always tell people, know what you're walking into. Do you see that often? Do you see people that are in school just because they have to be?
absolutely. Especially now since they did away with OAC. What is it? OACs with grade.
Yes,
I
yes,
did
grade
grade
grade 13.
13.
Yes,
Then they
right.
switched to
Yeah,
OAC. Was
OAC.
it?
That's right. That's right.
And so now you have some kids that are 17 coming into post secondary.
Mm,
Did you know what you wanted to do at 17?
okay.
I certainly, I had an idea sort of, but at 17 to make a decision that's going to affect your lifelong journey, that's tough,
Right.
right? And we're in the business of education. We're not in the business of vetting out students to make them ready for a law enforcement career. Everyone's entitled to an education. Do we have students that are in the program that likely have no desire? Absolutely. But at least it's something. And that's what we tell students. Finish it, because even with your 2-year diploma, you can bridge to so many university programs. And then at that point, maybe you'll figure out what you want to do.
Hmm.
And just having that piece of paper shows that you stuck to something. You were able to do research. You were able to write critically. You were able to evaluate. You were able to work with others, because there's a lot of team assignments in our programs. Um, so at least finish, right? Get that paper. Do we have the 5-10% that go on and get into policing, get into CBSA? Absolutely. But, it's okay to not know. You don't have to make a lifelong decision when you're 17, 18, 19,
No, for sure. So we're
right?
gonna focus on two things
Sure.
that you said, which I think is fantastic. First of all, the percentage of people that actually get into the career choices that they want to. But the second part of it is, even if you're not unsure of where you want to go, the discipline of doing what is expected from you in school, for example, completing assignments,
Yep.
researching the whole nine, those things are fundamental for your success in anything that you do.
100%.
In anything that you do. My daughter just started university and she's going to UFT. And she told me that she has to read, I think, 13 books by the end of like the year. And I thought to myself, what are these books about? Well, there's some books about poetry. She just wants to get into law, right? And I thought to myself, like, but I don't understand. But then as I'm going deeper and conversating with her, I'm understanding why they're putting this load on someone is because you're instilling disciplinary tools to help you,
Yep.
to help you open up the mind to put things in place. And we live in a world where there's timelines and there's deadlines and there's all these things that come into play. And if you can't master that, again, on the small level, it's going to start to take you out as you get into the bigger stuff, right? So that's one thing that I love that you said is that even if you don't know, still give it your all. The second piece is the competitive market, right? And again, this can be all across the board from any job out there. When you're getting into careers, specifically, I know for policing, the percentages have always been small. However, I do know right now that there is a mass drive to bring in recruits all across the board. A fourth class has just been opened up in the year now. So there's no longer 3 classes a year. Now it's
Yep.
four. And there is a lot of pressure on recruiters. So
Yep.
this, in my opinion, I look at that as incredible, great news. Like, wow, the odds have just increased for me, right?
Yep.
But we're still in a competitive market. They still need to look for the best. So, tell us a little bit about the competitiveness of how someone should look at something to make themselves stand out, and things that you notice from students in school now that make themselves stand out. And what maybe another student listening is, if they're about to enter post secondary, I mean, they just started this month. How should they look at it and saying, how am I going to put my best foot forward to make sure that everything that I'm hearing right now, I'm giving myself that competitive edge?
Okay. So for our programs, we provide a lot of opportunity for students to get involved. So we really promote that sense of community and kind of that responsible stewardship.
Hmm.
So with various runs that we have, so a bunch of our students did the law enforcement memorial run yesterday. They joined Durham Regional Police in Oshawa and ran to Curtis with them. So the Terry Fox run, we encourage that. We have a lot of ways for students to get involved. We speak about volunteering. So making sure that, whether it's going and having coffee at a senior center, but do something that shows that you're vested in your community, right? That will set you apart from, and your recruiters probably have told you all that as well.
Well, that was we actually had York Regional Police at one of our facilities, and one of the very first questions that they asked the group is, how many people here volunteer?
Yep.
And I think 2 people put their hands up, right? So that is an important one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's so many places, in anyone's community that would be happy to have you come in and give of yourself. What better way to give back to your community than giving of your time? We also, so speaking of recruiters, to touch on what you're saying, I have recruiters reaching out to me to want to come and speak to our students to recruit, which hasn't happened before, right? So that speaks to the fact that they're in need of numbers. So as a faculty, I have a great team that I work with. We look at ways to how we can better prepare our students. So like our career fair that you came to last year, that was amazing. That was the first time we ever had 50 organizations come and students got hired right then. I think
Yes.
you yourself even hired a couple of our students. We also last year began the Fitness Expo, where we invited recruiters to come and watch our students run through the prep in the shuttle, and then they were able to have those one-on-one conversations. So part of our program, we have a program advisory committee, and we meet twice a year. And members on that committee represent organizations in the community. So policing, CBSA, alcohol, gaming, bylaw, and they advise us of where there's a gap. So what they're seeing in recruits. So one of the things was mindfulness resilience was a big problem. Situational awareness. A lot of students didn't have situational awareness. Communication. So as a faculty, we take what they're telling us and we do something about it. So for our programs, we incorporated situational awareness training. So all of our justice students now get certified with situational awareness training through our Curie group. We engaged in a partnership with Dr. Jeff Thompson he's a retired NYPD detective, and he created the Warrior 21 program, which is a 21-day program to help with mindfulness and resilience. And he created that program because of the high suicide rates with the NYPD. Students who did it, so I ran a pilot project twice with my law students, and the feedback was phenomenal. They loved it. So now we have that in all of our programs. So all of our fitness courses will be delivering his program, which is amazing, right? We try to do stuff to set our students above the rest, though all the colleges are in the same business to offer diplomas and educate. But what can we do as a faculty team to kind of give our students the extra push?
Well, this is what I love about this, because I've always been, and I mean, what I've seen and experienced is that, look, schools are businesses, right?
Yes.
They're there for one reason. They're there to make money. Okay. And of course, they're there to pour into people and provide a product that people will, apply and utilize. However, it's not required for school to do what you're doing right now, to go so above and beyond and provide so much added value. What I'm hearing from you, Yvonne, today is that you're here to help people win, right? And the school has put up all these resources and add values that can truly help someone get the full turnaround picture. And I can relate to that from what we do in our organization is that, we want our people to win, right? So we want to provide them everything that they need to win. And I can tell you this, not every entity does this, right? So I commend the fact that you're doing that. But I also know that people like you who have such a passion for this are also kind of pushing and spearheading for these things to kind of take place. Because again, you want to see your students win.
Absolutely. At the end of the day, as you said, post-secondary is a business, right? It's
Yes.
about bums and seats.
Yes.
But for me, it's more than that. That's not my job. My
Right.
job is those connections with my students. And when my students succeed, whatever success looks like for them,
Yes.
to me, that's a win, right? And I love being a part of that. I love hearing, that I get the messages on Instagram or through email. Oh, I got my offer. And, to me, that just makes my heart smile. Like I
Right.
like a proud parent. I'm like, ah, look
Yes.
at that, right? So obviously, if more of our students can be hired in law enforcement, it makes our program look better too, right?
Of
Like,
course.
because the word gets out there. Oh, that's a
Success rates.
Durham, yeah, right?
Yeah.
It's a Durham graduate. Oh, this person's from Durham. So I've tried to foster, I've only, been full time at Durham for 4 years, and I've been the coordinator of my program for just over 3. I've tried to really nurture relationships. And I think I can say without a doubt, I have those good relationships. My students recently got to play candidates for the new batch of York Regional Police recruiters. How cool is that?
Mm.
I had 14 students sit through the behavioral interviews, and basically they were there as, the to play the role of police recruit candidates for the recruiters. So, but the recruiters provide them with feedback. So that is like, you can't pay for that experience, right?
Right.
And again, that's because I think of the relationships that I've formed with, people like yourself, right?
Okay.
It's that Sentinel mindset, that
Yeah.
winning mindset
Yeah,
we
that's
have.
right. That's right. No, that's amazing. So, what would you say would be some tips that you can provide someone that's just finishing high school and is going to walk into a post-secondary environment right now? What are the things that they can start doing to helping them get ready uh, um, for school? That's part one. Part two is for those that are in it right now who have maybe not caught up to the advice you're about to give for part one. How can they look to make their adjustments? I mean, only gets harder, right?
Yep.
As you go along in the process. So, what kind of
Okay,
advice
so
would you give for that?
the first question, COVID didn't do our students any favors. I
Mhm.
mean, that's an unfortunate reality, right? I mean, learning through Zoom is a horrible way to learn. You don't get that engagement. Even I know for us as professors, we weren't allowed to make students turn their camera on. So half the time, you don't
Yeah,
even know if you're engaging with students.
right.
So right off the bat, if you're coming in as, a young 17, 18-year-old to whatever your post-secondary institution looks like, look at your resources, get involved, make sure your professors know you. Um, you know, don't be afraid to ask for help. We're not there to hold your hand anymore. It's not like high school, right? There's a deadline. You make sure you meet that deadline, because my famous line with my students is, a conversation prior to is an arrangement. A conversation after the fact is an excuse.
Mhm.
Excuses don't fly with me. You're given your due dates well in advance. Time management is crucial. Reading, right? You talked about your daughter reading.
Mhm.
Reading is so important because it adds so much more than just your knowledge.
Yes.
Vocabulary, right? Your understanding. It deepens your mindset. Like, there's so many benefits to reading, which is
Right.
why you have to do so much reading in a university.
Yes.
Um, and then, get involved with your community. If there's events happening, join, because not only are you going to broaden your perspective, you're going to meet people, right?
Right.
And that's part of the post-secondary experience, meeting new friends and learning new cultures, and, being open to having,
The power of network.
absolutely
Yeah. Yeah.
contacts, right?
Yes.
Those contacts are so important.
Right.
And then for students that are there now, if you're struggling, don't wait till it's too late. If you're having an issue, go. Like, I know all post-secondary institutions have the resources there to help students. Our job isn't to fail students. Our job is to see them be successful. And there are so many resources in post-secondary institutions that will help you be successful. You need to tap into those resources, though,
Okay.
right? So don't be afraid to
Yes.
go to your student access and support center. Don't be afraid to go meet with your student advisor, because they're experts in helping you and setting up a plan. And sometimes it's just that. I need help with my time management. I don't know how to manage my time. I don't know how to study. Students don't know how to study coming out of
Mm.
high school,
Yeah.
unfortunately, through COVID. Just learning tricks on how to create acronyms to help you remember stuff. So I don't know if that answers
No,
your
no,
question, but like
that's
basically,
perfect. And actually, here's a funny thing. As you're saying this, I had another topic for another episode that I was going to do, but I'm going to do it right now with you.
oh
Okay.
no.
Okay.
Okay.
So this is something that I want to bring up because I'd like you to put your input onto this.
Sure.
So I was recently invited to come out to Seneca College. That's where I went to for my police foundations, which was at that point
I
called
won't
law
hold it
enforcement.
against you.
Oh,
It's
okay,
okay.
okay. I won't let them know. Okay. So when I was there, we had our signage up and our table up, and we had a bunch of students that were approaching all the tables, and I saw them. I was observing. I love coming out to these things just to observe. I had students approach me that they couldn't put sentences together. Okay, maybe they were shy. I don't know why they would be shy, but for whatever reason, they couldn't put it. I had other students that were engaged, trying to genuinely find out about the company, and they weren't making eye contact, or they were. It looked like they were distracted or looking on their phone, or and when I saw that, I just want everyone out there to hear this. My first take is, you're not working for this organization because of what you're showing me right now.
Yep.
And I think it's so important that I feel students that are in school understand that, especially when you're saying things like, you're having all these like opportunities for people to come, like police services, recruiters, they're doing the exact same thing. They're just observing top to bottom. They're looking at body language. But I also want to highlight, as much as I can, like, spotlight some of the negative things I saw, I want to highlight what caught my eye. And there was an individual that came up, and he was dressed in a suit because he knew that this was happening. And I'm going to just call this one the X factor, because he stood about everybody, and he came in and he goes, "Hello, sir. How are you?" And by the way, I don't I'll look being called sir, but sure. "Hello, sir. How are you? I'm very much interested in joining your organization. I have my resume here. I have a couple of questions that I'd like to ask." He made strong eye contact, had a good firm handshake. He left an impression on me. We hired him, and he's been doing incredible work because his foundation was so strong, and it just kept moving on. I think I'd like you to kind of just add some of your input or advice here, Yvonne, because a lot of times people think, I'm going to finish school, then I'm going to turn it on. Then I'm going to put out that impression, but not realizing that the minute you start entering into post-secondary, you're starting to kind of paint a picture of who you are, right? So how important is it for somebody to, if they really, wanted to stand out, to kind of put their right foot forward and start from that time frame as soon as they enter school?
Be a leader. And as you said, first impression, right? So if you know recruiters are coming, dress the part. Like that 30-second elevator pitch, you've got 30 seconds to impress somebody, and they're going to have an opinion of you after that 30 seconds. So if you're there, if your goal, if you're going to a recruiting event, so let's say, in a few weeks' time, I have your Waterloo Regional Police coming, dress the part. You want to be a duck, look like a duck, act like a duck, same thing.
Right.
You want to be a police recruit, look like it, dress professionally. You don't have to have your fancy suit on. You could have business casual, but at least look professional. Make the eye contact, like you said. But for our students, be a leader. So the students in my program right now, they're all tasked with leading something at school. So that could look like, because then they can speak to it in an interview, right? So tell me a time when, you were a leader or you showed leadership qualities. So the students that in this group now that I have to take on a leadership role, whatever that may be. So an example that I have for you is one student took it upon himself to go speak to all the first year students, because the first years tend to be more timid and not, the grade 9s in high school.
Right.
And tell them about all the activities coming up. So all the different runs that, the school of our Faculty of Social and Community Services is taking part in. Things like our justice games that we do, our Project Lord Ridgeback, which is our big experiential learning, mock scenario activity that happens after Christmas. So helping students get the leadership opportunities, but also kind of letting them be creative in how does that look for them.
Okay.
So I've had students in the past go talk to the second year students about the law program. If you don't want to go to university, think about doing the advanced law program, because you get all these certifications. You get to do placement in 2 different organizations. So you're networking, right? You're making those connections and adding to your resume, which is so important.
100%. Look, leadership is something that we preach in our organization. Some people might be like, I don't want to be a supervisor. I don't want to be a leader.
but you
The
don't.
you don't.
Yeah.
The reality is this: having that skill set,
Yep.
I can tell you that from a police service perspective, is a sought after skill set.
Yes.
Leadership is huge, and somebody might be thinking, well, I'm going to be riding along with another officer, or why? How am I going to be a supervisor? It's the how the public perceives you.
Yes.
You're perceived as a leader, someone that someone can approach. So I agree with that 100%. I think everyone should aspire into leadership, but not just leadership. We like to actually add a little servant leadership, right? Because you're
Yes.
serving others. So I think that's key. I think that's absolute key. I also feel that people that are jumping in and wanting to really, really, as you said, make that difference, should understand, because the market is so competitive, you want to give yourself the edge. Look, I know they made a recent announcements that you no longer need post-secondary education. Okay. So I've heard some people comment, okay, great, amazing. I can go right from high school. Okay. So just because they've said that, let's put you right now in a room. It's just down to two people. One has post-secondary and you don't. Who's winning?
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's what we need to start realizing is, yeah, they may have dropped down a bar, but that still does not mean that you're going to have an easy ride getting in. It just means it's made it more difficult for you if you just are giving the bare minimums.
Yeah. Well, and even let's be realistic. Though the Police Services Act says, I believe it's 18,
Yes.
you can be hired. I think there might be one in history that was hired at 18.
Yes.
Even 21 when I got hired. That's an anomaly, right?
Right.
Yes, there are some services who have hired the odd 21-year-old, but how do you have life experience if you're living in your mom and dad's house
Yes.
and you haven't really gone out past high school? You might be working a part-time job. So
And you've never had to deal with conflict.
absolutely.
Yes.
And that's a question too. How do you deal with conflict? Tell me a
Right.
time when
Right.
you've had conflict and how you deal with it. So I preach to my students lifelong learning. I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but I'm in a doctorate program right now myself,
Okay.
right? So if I'm preaching it, I might
Yes.
as well, if I'm going
Apply
to walk
it.
the walk, I
Yeah.
might as well talk the talk,
Yeah.
right? So I'm like, don't just settle for a diploma. I hope that somewhere in you, there's that spark to do more,
Mm.
because police services love to hear that you're into lifelong learning, because just because you graduate from the Ontario Police College doesn't mean you're done learning. You have a whole career ahead of you of learning. And as soon as you say, I'm not learning anymore, you've just shut yourself off to so much, right? There's so many different opportunities to learn. So education absolutely is important. And I mean, education is beyond just the paper, right? It's about, you know, opening up your view, your worldview, about, you know, accepting different ways of thinking and knowing, and, you know, being open to different cultures and empathetic. And like,
Yeah.
there's just so many, makes you a better writer. Like
100%.
communication, like there's, like we go on and on and
Yeah.
on about
Yeah.
what education is beneficial for. So I would hope that, you know, individuals who took that news, as much as it was like, oh, why did they do that?
Yes.
I think that's more so for the people who have, say, 10 years of work experience, but I don't have a post-secondary degree or diploma. Do I still have a chance? Well, yes,
Right.
for those people, absolutely, because you're bringing 10 years of
That's
life
right.
experience in the
That's right.
workforce that you can add to, you know, because everything you've done in your work is applicable to policing. Right?
Absolutely.
So, but for the 18-year-old graduating high school, it's a pipe dream.
100%. And
Yeah.
here's another analogy we can tie into this. So look at professional sports, right?
Mhm.
So a lot of people who do get that lottery opportunity
Mhm.
to go pro, you hear many stories of I made it in the NBA, I made it in the NHL, but then your career ends up in maybe 1 to 3 years.
Yep.
Okay, and if you look at that, there's been many stories of professional players that have gone in and they've made it, and that's it. The bar's done now. However, for those that have sustained and created this really lengthy career in sports, is because they said, "Wow, I made it now. Now let me level up and be this. Let me be even better. Let me be even better."
Yep.
And that gives them a career. So to your point about always bettering your education, and don't do just the bare minimum. Continuously evolve. We all evolve. I mean, myself as a leader of my organization, I've had people say to me, "Oh, you're a leader. You're a great leader. You that's it. I'm assuming you're basically done. You don't have to do anything you need to do." I go, "Do you know how much work it takes to get into leadership? Do you know how much
Mhm.
conferences and sessions and books and stuff that I'm not just read, I'm continuously reading. I'm a work, as you said, we're all work in progress.
Yep.
And we will look back at ourselves 10 years and be like, look how much I've grown in 10 years. And then the next 10 years, they'll say the exact same thing.
Yep.
So I think that's very, very sound advice that you're giving, Yvonne. And I think it's great for any student to know. It's like, don't just do the bare minimum, do beyond what is expected. That's how we grow, when we push and we get into the uncomfortability.
If it was easy, everyone would do it.
Everyone would do it, exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm really happy that you shared that. Any other words that you'd like to, or words of advice, Yvonne, that you'd like to kind of share? Maybe something that you already share on a regular basis with many of your students that can help them succeed in their journeys.
Tap into your resources. So use the people that you have in your circle. So my students already know it. I provide resume writing services for free. I don't charge students to do that. I have templates that I use my template, send it back to me. I'll proof it for you. I'll check it for you. Get in touch with recruiters. Go to those recruiting sessions. Look at, jobs like for yourself. Be the company that, you own. Work for people like yourself to
Right.
get that experience, and hang around with like-minded people.
Yes.
You may have to make some tough choices. You might have to cut off friends that are questionable.
Mm-hmm.
How bad do you want it?
Right.
Right? That's the reality. And, that lifelong learning, don't give up on it. I can just share you a quick personal story.
Yes.
My son, is an officer. He did hit our program 2 years, bridge to Ontario Tech, got his degree, got hired with York Regional Police. He's already looking at his master's degree. So
Wow. See,
he's-
the perfect example.
Yep. And he wants to do his master's. He's already, started the process, master's in forensic psych, because that's what he has. But his end goal, he wants to do his MBA, because to be a senior leader, police services are businesses,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, and if you look at all your senior leaders across the board in police services, most of them have business, most of them have post-secondary education. So that's something I also tell my students. If you're looking to aspire to rise up in the ranks, gone are the days where you just needed a grade 12 education.
Right.
Police services have evolved. They're businesses. You need to better yourself. So think long term, right? It doesn't mean you have to do it right today after you graduate our programs. But, think about, where do I want to be and what does that look like, right? I still haven't figured out what I want to be. So but school is a part of it.
Yes.
So
I love that. Look, the one thing that you're saying, which I think is powerful, is like the work ethic, right? The work ethic piece that guides you and that ensures that you're on that path. And you're absolutely right. The world has changed dramatically. And, if you look at any really successful organization, it's because it's being run by performers.
yes.
And these performers have experiences and educations and drives. You really have to understand that as an individual looking into this. Like, for anyone listening, is that's how society is composed of, right? So everyone wants to be the best as an organization. They need to have the right players.
Yep.
If York, for example, here as the example, did not have a standard and they just hired anyone, that would be a reflection of their service. And that service would have a bad reputation. It
Yep.
doesn't. It's the complete polar opposite. So to me, I'm glad that you're saying that. And I'm really, really hoping that any student listening to this understands the significance of preparation, of going in all in and giving themselves that competitive edge. And what a better place to do that than at Durham College.
Absolutely.
Is there a link that you can tap into for Durham College for anyone, or they just kind of just have to go on if they're looking for the Police Foundations program and just explore through the portal?
I can share the links with you after. If
Okay,
you
so
want.
we'll
You can
put the
yeah.
links on the description.
But I am on Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn. They can, send me a message. I always respond.
Amazing. Yvonne, I really want to thank you for coming down here and sharing this journey today and this information that I think is just a bunch of gold nuggets that people can embrace. And if there's one thing that any takeaway can happen here, is that give yourself the edge to basically succeed and to win, because we are in that kind of market, and there's no better time at the same time
Then now.
than now to start doing this. So I'm glad.
Yeah.
Any last words?
No. Thank you very much. I'm honored that you asked me to come here today. Truly.
Okay, amazing. Well, thanks very much, Yvonne. In another world, I would have been one of your students, but you know what? Here we are today.
I'm not that old.
Thank you so much. Have a fantastic day, everybody, and enjoy the rest of the week. Take care.
This podcast is brought to you by Executive Protection Lifestyle Canada. Make sure to drop by next week and don't forget to subscribe.